All right, good afternoon, parents. So this week we're starting lesson 4, which is multiplying multi-digit numbers. We actually started this today, Tuesday the 17th. So multiplying multi-digit numbers, let's talk about what that means. In previous grades, students have learned how to multiply, obviously, and they've been taught different strategies to multiply. But up until this point, it's been problems such as a two-digit number like the number 25 times another two-digit number like 15. So each of these numbers or each of these factors is what those numbers are called, only have 2 digits in them. And they learned several different strategies. They've learned something called the area model. I'm just going to type it on here. Sometimes you'll hear them refer to that as the box method, because I'm pretty sure that's what their teacher called it last year in the 4th grade. So this is a strategy. They also have learned how to use, or have been at least introduced to, the standard algorithm, which is how most of you have probably learned how to multiply. And I'll give examples of each of these in a minute. But another strategy that they should have learned at some time probably last year is called partial products. So today I kind of wanted to go over each of these strategies with you just so you could see different ways that your child might choose to work out these multiplication problems. But in the 5th grade, it's going to get a little bit harder than two-digit numbers times two-digit numbers. They're going to have multi-digit numbers, so they might have a 3-digit number such as, let me see, I don't know, 123 times a two-digit number. They might have a 4-digit number right here, like 5,613 times a two-digit number. They might have a 5-digit number times a two-digit. They might even have a 6-digit number times a two-digit number. So this first factor in the problem, this first factor in the problem is getting larger than what they've seen in previous grades. And then after they kind of grasp that a little bit, I'll move on, and instead of having a 2-digit number right here, I might do a 3-digit number. So I'm going to show you an example today with this problem that they have on the screen, which is right here. I'm going to circle in orange, 124 times 25, right here. All right, so the first strategy I'm going to go over is area model, just in case you've not seen it before or don't understand it, because this is the way most of your children will choose to do it, or at least that's what I noticed they were choosing to do in class. So for all of these strategies, I'm going to use 124 times 25. Also, your students are bringing home a copy of this parent letter today, as well as their homework, which will look like this. It starts on page 57 and ends on page 58 for today. I'll post the rest of the homework throughout the week on Class Dojo today when I post this. So let's go ahead and learn how to do 124 times 25 doing the way that you learned how to do it, most likely, which was the standard algorithm. So with the standard algorithm, we're going to take the larger number, 124, and I'm going to stack it on top. And I'm going to line up 25, which is a smaller number, underneath it. And I make sure to stress to the kids to line this up using place value. So my 4 and this 5 are all in the ones place. So they're on top of each other. Both of these 2s are in the tens place. So they're on top of each other. And this 1 is in the hundreds place. Also, if you hear something in the background, if you're walking around, I need your little tail to sit down. Quit running around. No, sit down. No, we're not walking around. Right, so let's get back to this. So this is how they would stack it up, and then they start working it. Let me move this out of our way. Alrighty, so they know that they're supposed to start on this bottom 25, and they're going to start with just the 5 in the ones place, and they need to multiply it times everything on top, starting with this 4, which is in the ones place. So they'd say, okay, 5 times 4 is 20, so I put my 0 down, I carry my 2 to the next place. Then they do 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 plus the 2 you carried is 12, so put my 2 down, I I carry my 1 to the next place. And then they'd say 5 times 1 is 5. And then 5 plus the 1 you carried is 6. So they did the 5 times all of these numbers on top, starting with the ones place, going all the way to the hundreds place. And after they do that, they're done with this 5. They don't need it anymore, so I encourage them to X that out and to also X out these numbers they carried so they remember, hey, I'm done with that. I'm not going to use it anymore. And then they're going to move on to this 2. But in order to multiply the 2 times the numbers on top, that 124, they have to remember what this 2 actually represents. And because that 2 is in the tens place, it does not represent a 2, but it represents 20. But while we're multiplying, we want to pretend that it's going to be representing, or that it is a 2. So in order to be able to do that and multiply easier, they know they need to put a placeholder 0 down here, or a smiley face 0 is how I was taught to do it, and it's how I encourage them to do it if it's going to help them remember to put it there. And once that's there, then they can start multiplying. So they're going to start with this 2 and multiply it times the stuff on the top, starting with the ones place. So 2 times 4 is 8. Then they go to times 2 is 4. And then 2 times 1 is 2. They did the 2 times everything on top, so they're done with that 2. They can X it out. And once all of these bottom numbers are X'd out, they know they're done multiplying. All they have to do now is add.
Good afternoon, teachers and students. I hope that everybody had a great day today. It is time for dismissal, so we need all Boys and Girls Club students to walk down the hall to get on the bus to go to the Boys and Girls Club. All Boys and Girls Club students walk down the hall to get on the bus to go to the Boys and Girls Club.
Don't start. If it's time for you to go, I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget your homework. Don't forget your test folder. Love you. See you later. Everybody else, you're staying still. You're staying quiet while I finish this. Okay. Okay. So that's the end of that. They multiplied the 5, got these black numbers. They multiplied the 2, got these purple numbers. When everything's been multiplied, I went ahead and added while that announcement was on, and this would have been their final answer, 3,100. Okay, so that was the standard algorithm. This strategy is great for students who are sequential learners who like patterns and repetition and memorizing, but this doesn't 100% explain to them why they're multiplying the numbers they are multiplying. That's what this area model or box method and partial product strategy is for. It kind of lets them understand what they're doing, how they're breaking down the numbers and such a little bit easier. Whenever I was taught math and whenever most of you were taught math, it was more of a, hey, this is how you do it. You do it this way. You only do it this way. You memorize this, and you can get the good grade if you remember how to do it. But now we want students to understand why they're doing things the way they're doing it. And we want them to be able to break it down and really understand what those numbers mean. Okay, so let's move on to the next strategy, which is the area model or box method, which is what they'll be calling it. So we're going to start with the same problem, 124 times 25. And I'm going to start with this larger number, 124. And I'm going to put this number in expanded form. That means I look at each place value and I stretch this number out into kind of an addition problem based on place value. Please get still. All right, so that 1 is in the hundredths place, so that 1 represents 100. That 2 is in the tens place, so that 2 represents 20. And that 4 is in the ones place, so it just represents 4. So this would be 124 in expanded form. With the box method, they need a box, so I'm going to draw that right now.
We're ready for car riders to walk down the hall by pre-K to get in your cars to go home. All car riders, walk down the hall by pre-K to get in your cars to go home.
Love you. See you tomorrow. All right. So with this, the larger number in the equation goes on top, 124. And each of those numbers needs its own section or own column. So this 100 gets this column that's right below it. This 20 gets this column right below it. And this 4 gets its column right below it. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the 25 in this equation, but over to the side. That 2 in the number 25 represents 20. And that 4 is in the ones place, so it represents 5. So this is what that would look like in expanded form. And each of these numbers needs its own section. So I'm going to divide this box, and this 20 gets this row, and this 5 gets this row. And now what we've created is this model that has 6 different sections in it. And each section is going to represent a different part of the equation because we're breaking the equation down. So I'm going to start with this first section. Underneath this 100, each of these boxes need a 100 in it. And I'm kind of going to have to type this small. So 100 will be in this times something. I'll show you what it'll be multiplied by in a second. And this will get a 100 times something because it's below 100. Okay? This section has a 20 above it, so it gets 20 times something. And this will be 20 times something because it's below the 20. And these are both below the 4, so I get 4 times something and 4 times something. So that's the first part of the equation for each of those. To get whatever it's multiplied by, I look at the side of the box. So since this one, and this one are all beside the 20, it's going to be 100 times 20. This is 20 times 20.
We're ready for green bus. Bus 105 first load to walk down the hall to get on the
Bye.
bus.
See y'all tomorrow.
Green bus. Bus 105 first load.
And this one is going to be 4 times 20. I knew the 20 went with all these because that row represents the 20s. And I know this is kind of a cramped space. Usually it wouldn't be this cramped, and all of that 100 times 20, 20 times 20, 40 times 20 wouldn't be all crazy like that. They'd be right beside each other. And then down here, this would be 100 times, you guessed it, 5. This would be 20 times 5. And this would be 4 times 5. Okay, so how I just wrote these equations in each of these sections, some of the students are really good at this. They've been practicing this for years, so they might not write that down in there. They just know, hey, in this box, I need to do 100 times 20. And instead, they might just write their answer in that box. Okay, so 100 times 20 is 2,000. They might just write a 2,000 here. Okay, and then I have this next box, 100 times 5 is 500. Then I have this next box is 20 times 20. That's going to be 400. This next box is 4 times 20, which is going to be 80. This next one, 4 times 5, is just going to be 20. And then 20 times 5 is going to be 100. So now I have these numbers, 2,000, 400, 80, 20, 100, 500. And they know they need to take those and they need to add them all together. And if I came over here and added all these up, I would just stack them on top of each other using place value. This is something I'm not even really having to teach your kids. They already know this from previous grades, and they're really good at it. They'd stack them all up, 80, 20, that's an 80. And then they'd add them. For time's sake, I'm not going to add them, but it would add up to be this same thing right here, 3,100. What?
All right, we're ready for purple bus. Bus 230 purple to walk down the hall to get on the bus to go home. Purple
Come here,
bus.
Malachi.
Bus 230 purple.
Bye, guys. Here. Call them and ask them. Okay, so that's the area model. The reason this is good is because what they're doing is they're getting to break apart the number 124 and 25. Those numbers might be too hard for them to multiply, but if they break it apart into these different equations, it becomes a little bit easier and quicker for them to get these partial products.
Do I have practice today? Where do I go?
All right, he's on the way, Coach. Bye, Malachi. All right, so that is the area model. The last one I'm going to show you is partial products because some students do like this. This one is very similar to the standard algorithm that you and I learned when we were in school, but it's a little bit broken down.
I call my mom up and I need to know where do I go.
You ride the bus home like you always do.
I didn't tell me.
No, you know you're supposed to ride the bus. Okay. We're going to do the same problem, 124 times 25. And we're going to stack it just like we do with the standard algorithm, 124 times 25. And I'm going to work it similarly, but I'm going to break it down a little bit different than I do with the standard algorithm. So we're still going to start with this bottom number, 25, and I'm going to start in the ones place with the 5. And I know I need to multiply that 5 times all of these numbers on top, one step at a time. So how we talk about this in classes is we start and we say, okay, what do I need to multiply 5 times first? And they know I need to do 5 times 4. Then I say, well, what would I do 5 times next? They know it would be 5 times this 2, but that 2 doesn't represent 2. That 2 is in the tens place, so it represents a 20. So 5 times 20. And then they know next would be 5 times that 1, which really represents 100. So 5 times 4, 5 times 20, 5 times 100 is what they would get. And then they'd say, okay, I'm done with the 5. Let me go ahead and get these answers. This is an arrow. It looks crazy. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 20 is 100. They're going to make sure they're still lining up their place values. And 5 times 100 is 500. All right, so they did all of the 5s times everything. Now they know they need to do this 2 times everything. But that 2 doesn't really represent a 2. That 2 represents the number 20. So they'd come and say, okay, first I need to do 20 times this 4. And they tell me, okay, next I need to do 20 times this 2 that's on top. That 2 really represents 20 also. And then they know they needed to finish it out with 20 times this 1, which really is 20 times 100. And once they got that, they come down here. I'm not going to draw the arrow because someone's waiting to talk to me. But they draw these arrows. 20 times 4 is 80. 20 times 20 is 400. Hold on, baby. 1 second. And 20 times 100 is 2,000.
All right, we're ready for Pink Buzz. Buzz 69
Is that you?
to walk down the hall to get on the bus to go home. Pink Buzz.
Gosh,
Buzz
Steven's on the way out.
69 Pink.
Okay, so they got all the answers to these. They got all the answers to these. These are a part of their answer. That's where the word partial products comes from. So the product is the answer to multiplication problem, and this is a part of the answer. Once they've done all that multiplication and everything's X'd out down here, they know they need to add these. And if I add all of these up, it's going to be the same answers that I got here, 3,100. And I showed the kids this today, and a lot of them did like this. So I'd say for all the kids, the favorite for the majority is the area model or box method. Next up, I'd say some kids really liked this because they're able to understand where these numbers are coming from in this equation. These equations over here let them know exactly what they're multiplying. Once they get good at partial products, they won't write these equations down anymore. They'll just be doing it in their head and writing these part of these answers over here and adding them. The one the least amount of students like is the standard algorithm, but this is the one that y'all are probably pushing at home as parents. I will say the standard that the state requires us to teach by and how the students are tested on does not require them to know the standard algorithm. It requires it to have been taught to them, introduced to them, and they are starting to make sense of it. But in the 5th grade, the goal is that they are just fluent in multiplying. So that it doesn't matter if it's the box method or partial products or standard algorithm. They get to pick which one they like the most, and that's what I'm going to help them practice. So that's what we'll be doing this week is problems just like this. I'm not going to push one strategy on them over the other. Whichever one they choose, that's what I'll help them with. Other than that, tonight's homework, today is Tuesday, is page 57 and 58, and I'll post the rest of the homework later this week. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you have any questions, just shoot me a Dojo message, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys. Okay. Y'all good? Y'all leaving my room clean?